she actually had to come back to tell the story she would have told. This is Erilyn Hughes. She just walked in from a conference. She's been sitting all day. And if you know Erilyn, that could be dangerous, so watch out. But she got good information about running and setting up a business. Prior to that, she was a successful Tupperware salesperson and had parties and all. Yes. And in Sydney, Australia, once she climbed over the top of that bridge seen in all the photos with Opera House, and she did it at night in the dark so she could see the lights. That's it, because that was 50 fucking words, Erilyn.
She's got the voice.
This is who I used to be. This is who I used to be. Now, I was the girl who was not the beauty queen, the smart girl with the glasses, and the girl with the really nice personality. So, I grew up in Oklahoma with Ozzie and Harriet parents, and because I never had any dates all of high school, I was always free on Friday and Saturday nights to babysit. So I started babysitting. It was my first job. And of course, in Oklahoma in the 50s, what I knew is that my destiny was to grow up and someday get married, walk down that aisle in a white dress, and be the virgin queen, and, you know, have children. It never occurred to me I would do anything different. And of course, they did talk about the old maids, and certainly you knew you didn't want to be one of those people. But I didn't have any dates in high school, so I babysat on Friday and Saturday nights, and I thought to myself, Lord, this is a nightmare. I can't believe that I might actually have to deal with these kids on a full-time basis, not for 3 hours in the afternoon or 3 hours in the evening. You've got to be kidding. And I started talking about it. I hate babysitting. I hate those kids. I just want to punch out their lights. People would say, well, when you have your own children, it's different. But somehow, I wasn't quite ready to buy that. When I got ready to go to college, I majored in home economics, education. Because, of course, I wanted to beef up my skills to be a wife and mother. And my mother said, you should go to college for at least a year. And then, if you want to get married, it'll be okay. But we think you should have the experience of 1 year of college, and you'll get a better selection of men there. So, I majored in home ec, and I became the Tri-Delta president, and I was involved in all that social stuff, but still never had any dates. I was always home on Friday and Saturday night, learning how to play bridge and doing those kind of things with all the other girls with a good personality. Pretty soon it became apparent to me that I was getting ready to graduate from college, and I didn't have anybody to get married to, and I thought, I think I might have to work. I would have a job or not be married and have kids. But shortly before, I got acquainted with the boy next door in the apartment, and he asked me to get married, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings, and it was time. And so I, walked down the aisle in that white dress that my mother made, and as I walked down the aisle, I thought the whole time, this is a freak show. This is a comedy. I acted, I'm somehow caught up in it, and I didn't even think about it. I happened to marry, and my mother said that no one would ever marry me because I didn't keep my room clean enough, but in fact they did. He was a military naval officer, handpicked by Admiral Rickover for all this high-powered training in the Navy and top secrecy, and so we moved all over the country. So I had my little home economics degree. I'd done my little student teaching in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And the first place we lived was California. So I said, well, I think I'll do some substitute teaching. So they called me in. I had to get up in those god-awful hours and drive because I was 30 minutes north of San Francisco, so there was lots of traffic for a little girl coming out of Oklahoma. And so I get into the classroom, and I speak in this heavy Oklahoma accent, and I have all black students, and they are militant. They are talking the language and telling me all about the Black Panthers, and they were fixing their hair and painting their fingernails. And I said, excuse me, you need to put away your comb and they went, don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. So I thought, well, no, they didn't tell me about this. I asked the teacher next door, I said, I'm having a little trouble making these kids do what they're supposed to be doing. She said, just remember, you have scissors in your room. Don't turn your back. As they left that day, they said, we're going to come burn your house down. Now, I lived on a military base with high security, so I said, I'll leave the porch light on. But in this talk that they did, I started kind of listening because they were talking about Angela Davis. And she was at LA, and she was talking black power, which I didn't relate to all that much, and thought, what is all that militancy about? But then she was also talking about woman power. And I was listening to everything she was saying and going, yeah, equal rights, social justice, freedom for reproductive services, right to have an abortion if you want one. So, but I kind of let it go because I was the wife and mother. I was making breakfast and lunch and dinner 3 times a day, everything from scratch. And we next moved to Idaho, where the prototype submarine was out in God knows where, in this Podunk, Idaho. You couldn't get even near the gate. There was so much security. So I thought, well, I'll teach school because he's gone most of the time, and I substituted, and I had kids who were Mormons. And in home ec, they said, we want to learn how to cook biscuits from scratch and make banana bread from scratch, and we'd like to learn how to can peaches during our class. I'm thinking, what? We just came out of home economics school, and it was the second best home economics school next to Cornell, and it was top. And what we were learning was that women no longer want to be a slave to the kitchen, and they want to get rid of that apron and not be dirty all the time. So we were taught to, learn how to do and make them acceptable to use 1 pound, 1 box, hamburger helper. And that was where that we were going. So I was like, I don't know about this. We left Idaho and we went to Hawaii. And he was gone out to sea underwater for 60 days, and there I was in Hawaii. And what was going on then was that they were trying to legalize the abortion laws in Hawaii. It was going state by state before it was passed through the Supreme Court. And so when I was a kid, I had heard the word abortion on the TV, and I said to my mother, what's an abortion? She said, something you don't need to know about, you'll never worry about it, you'll never know about it, it's just for bad people. So I went, okay, well, let's watch this. And so I watched all this, and I heard all this debate, and I just went from here to here, and I said, why should women have to go to back alley abortionists, do self-abortions, go to Mexico, and why is it that rich women could get abortions where poor women couldn't? And I became a total zealot on the pro-choice movement. Then we moved, after the admiral called my husband in and said, Lieutenant Cepeda, that was his name, we would like you to get your wife under control while you're out at sea because she's on TV and everything, marching. So off we went, and we went to Charleston, South Carolina. And that was a different pace, but I had an opportunity to start a school year and do a whole school year by myself. And since he was gone for 3 months out at a time, 3 months home, 3 months here, 3 months gone, 3 months here, 3 months, I said, I'm going to do this job. It was 30 miles out of Charleston, South Carolina. So I can't even remember how I kind of got hired. I think somebody called me on the telephone or some such thing. So I show up for my classroom and I walk in and there's 33 black students. And I thought, oh no, not this militant stuff again. But after a while I realized I was going to have to make them militant. I was going to have to give them assertiveness training because they were quiet and sweet and lovely, but 33 kids, 8th grade, in a classroom, and I'm trying to teach general science, that is not an easy task. If you glued their feet to the floor and their hands with a glue gun to the desk, there would still be noise in that class because it's just that many people and that many things going on. So I thought, how am I going to get this class under control? I couldn't even understand what they were talking about because they spoke in this Gullah language, which is an old black slave language. And so it's real, it's like, Michael, come over here and come right in my ear. They something else here. Well, I'm visual, so I said, well, we'll just do everything on the blackboard, and I'll have to verbally tell them everything. So I would draw a picture of a house on the blackboard, and I would put a chimney on it, and I'd put the smoke from the chimney, and then I'd make it go down to the ground and go down the street. And I would say, what is wrong with this picture? And they would say, the windows are crooked. The sidewalk's going the wrong way. But anyway, eventually they did get it. The hot air rises, and that was my point. But that's how I So I thought, they were sharpening their pencils, they were chewing gum, they were all talking, they were passing notes. And I said, I just can't stand this. I said, I tell you what, I'm going to make a deal, make an agreement, little design of the classroom here. I will give you 15 minutes at the end of the class, and we'll talk about and do whatever you want to. But for the first 45 minutes, you have to do what I say, you have to do what I instruct you to do, you have to not talk, you have to not chew gum, and you not send those pieces of paper across the room and all that stuff. And they said, well, what can we talk about? I said, anything. And they said, can we talk about sex? I said, yes. They said, can we talk about birth control? Yes. Can we talk about dating? Yes. Can we talk about anatomy? Yes. Well, all of a sudden, I was the teacher in the school, the 21-year-old new teacher, who had total control of my class. I would just go, is there some, and instead of me disciplining the students, they themselves were going. Because they wanted to talk at the end of the class. So, 45 minutes, I said, okay. Well, the last 15 minutes was pure joy for me because no one ever told me anything about sex or sexuality or anatomy and periods and all those things. And I had all this misinformation, but I kind of cleaned it up over time. They were asking the same questions. They wanted to know the same information. And they had everything all mixed up and confused. And of course, the one question I remember is Mrs. Cepeda, are you on birth control pills? I was like, oh shit, I'm going to the principal's office on this one for sure. And I said, yes. So I was at the principal's office, but I had been there before. Because he said, you just can't talk to these kids about that stuff. And I said, why not? That I'm getting all the work I'm supposed to do, and it's working for me, and they're learning things, and they need to know this information. He said, well, I don't know. And I had been called in before because of my clothing. He said, we are afraid if you continue to wear clothes to school like this, that the students might start wearing clothes like this. And I said, I hear and see anything that's inappropriate, or anything that's low cut, which it wasn't. Let me know, but otherwise I'm going to continue to wear these clothes, and I hope the students wear these clothes because they'll be a lot more fashionable than they look now. Trust me. I thought this is the only thing I would want to teach, not general science. I want to teach life skills. I want to teach sexuality, birth control, dating. I want to pose all those questions. I want to get rid of all those things that are wrong that they think. And I want them to understand that they have options in life. They don't have to get married. They don't have to have kids. We have birth control now. And as a backup method, we have abortion, and I talked about that. And I thought, I'm not going to be here next year, so what? The end of the school year came, and, all of a sudden it was kind of the last day, and they kind of like, bye, see you, bye, see you. And off they went. And I sat in that classroom by myself, and I thought, this teaching is a thankless job. I mean, I spent a year with these kids, and they just walk out the door and they're gone. But they had given me a gift because they had allowed somehow for me to understand that the only thing that I could teach, or that I wanted to teach, was in the area of sex education. And also, at that time, I started to understand that I didn't want to be a wife, and I didn't want to have children. That was not my calling, that was not what made me happy, and that I was going down the wrong trail. And I had my defining moment, is that I have to totally switch gears. My husband and I had talked about having kids, and I had said, I don't think I want to do it. I did a lot of babysitting. And so when it came 5 years later, he said, let's have the kids. And I said, I told you I didn't want to have any kids. And he said, but, you know, after you get married, you change. And everybody wants to have kids like down the line, you know, 3 or 4 years. Time to do it. And I went, can't do it. So all of a sudden, I went from here to here. I now looked at the fact that I was going to have to financially support myself for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to have a husband. I wasn't going to have kids to take care of me when I got older. And that I wanted to teach sex education, or I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to teach. So I talked about teaching sex education to different educators and principals, and they all just went, you've got to be kidding. Number one, we'll never do it. And number two, if we did, you are too young to teach it. And of course, to this day, we have no sexuality education in high schools. I'm not even sure we have life skills classes, but they may be there, but they certainly don't teach sex education or any of that. And so that was my turning point, and I started moving in a different direction, and I thought, well, one thing I can do is just become better at what I do. So I volunteered at Planned Parenthood, and I had some very good training there. I was in all the exam rooms. I learned everything there was to learn about birth control and anatomy and everything that I didn't know, so I was really tweaked on all that. And the next thing I know, I am asked to be the director of the first abortion clinic in Austin. First trimester, first abortion clinic in Austin. So I did that because what happened there is I started to understand that if we'd been able to get to them with the sexuality education and the birth control information, they wouldn't be in that abortion clinic. No. And at the abortion clinic, we talked about all the ways to do birth control and how to deal in relationships so that that didn't happen again if they didn't want it to, which none of them did. And it was a very fulfilling job because I saw the faces of these women come in terror and shame, and sometimes with boyfriends, sometimes alone, sometimes with parents. And I saw them sleep with a sense of relief and a sense of power, and that they had done the right thing. And one thing in my counseling that I directed all the counselors to do is I said, there is no woman that's going to leave here not knowing everything there is about birth control, and that she is absolutely sure of her decision. If there was ever a question, we would say, we think that you are not decisive about what you want to do here, and we want you to go home. And 9 times out of 10, they would say, I had an appointment at 10 o'clock, and I'm having this abortion today. And that's all I needed to hear. I did that job for about 5 years. We did 80 abortions a week. And the statistics on that, if that's shocking to you, are much bigger. And I did not feel that anyone there was there on a casual, attitude of, oh well, if I get pregnant, I'll just have an abortion. It was very traumatic. No one was happy to be there. No one did that casually. I had incest kids at 12 years old. I had rape victims. I had students. I had kids in there that were 17 that their parents didn't know they were there. I had preachers' wives that didn't know that they were there. Everything was very secured in terms of information. I had women who were 45 and said, I have grown kids. I can't do this again. I had women who were pro-life, who were marching down at the state capitol and was wanting to get the abortion on Wednesday so they'd be free to be there on Saturday. But it was, as I look back, I think often about those faces, pretty much somewhat like in this room, of those kids in my classroom. And I think about the faces of the women in that abortion clinic. And I